Today in the bunker, we're going to build a hospital suitable for the wasteland. First thing you'll notice about this kit is, like pretty much all the kits from the big box of kits that I got, it's filthy. This sat somewhere and just collected probably decades of grime. So the first thing we're going to do is wash this and get ready to put together. So just a little bit of dishwashing liquid and some warm water, a little bit of sponge work, and almost all that grime comes off. Since we're going to make this for the wasteland anyway, it doesn't matter, we'll be painting over it. So it'll just kind of add to the ambiance, but you want to be able to at least not feel too bad about touching this. 50 years of accumulated grime probably. I noticed while I was washing it, the patent date was on some of these pieces. It's 1952. So yeah, this thing's like potentially 70 years old or older, and it's pretty cool. Or 60. Well, I can't do math. Anyway, it's old. Also, you can tell this is from a different era because the emergency room is the accident ward. This is from a world before 911 was a thing. You didn't have 911 to call. That was decades after this kit was designed. So, interesting glimpse into the past. And just like our last video, these kits have these tabs and they only go together one way, like that. So then once you put them together and line them up, you just hit that with a little plastic cement and it'll hold it, and then we're going to add a floor. Once I had the building glued together and squared up, I went ahead and traced on a piece of chipboard our base, and I'm going to cut that out carefully, and then we will glue that to this building, probably using hot glue, and try to firm everything up just a little more. I'm just going to use my trusty Olfa retractable knife. And we'll just very carefully cut along these lines. It doesn't have to be perfect, and if you get outside the lines a little bit, we can trim that up after it's glued together. Not a big deal. A little bit of chipboard and some hot glue later, and we have a floor. And what I did was I just put some glue on the tabs where the doors were to kind of hold it in place. And then this is big enough you can actually get in here with your glue gun and glue it along the seams and do all that. I should note this kit has these pieces in here that make it look like you could set a floor in there, and I think originally it was supposed to have that, because the skylight, once it's on there, you could look down in the hospital, and there are little bits like beds and whatnot that I have somewhere that came with this box of stuff. For now, I'm not going to put a second floor in. That'll come later, but you can do it. The stairs going up to the entrance, you can see where I got a little bit of a gap going on there. The stairs will hide a multitude of sins, so no need to worry about that. I'm going to leave that separate. I'll just take it off and put it inside when I'm storing this, and that way this part isn't prone to just snapping off while you're storing it. One of the drawbacks to these Plasticville buildings is that they all say Plasticville, and they're all molded in, and really sometimes a little kind of a bit of a pain to get rid of. So what I'm going to do is take this strip styrene, and you could use plastic, you could use some balsa wood, even some strips of chipboard, whatever, and we're just going to build a frame around this sign, and then we can lay another sign on top of it. Alright, so it doesn't take much, just build that framework around that Plasticville thing, and then later we'll make a sign we can just glue right on there, sort of applique that. But that'll neaten it up quite a bit and take away from you'll knock some of the Plasticville off of it, basically. So I'm going to let this firm up a little bit more, and then we're going to get ready to prime this. The roof was a little monotonous, So I added a few bits. I took some of that styrene, but you could use anything, just to add kind of a door handle to that roof hatch. I took some leftover 3D printed air handler pieces I had from a previous project and super glued those down. I'm hoping they'll stay. I'm going to let that cure for a while before we actually paint this. But you could add almost anything to this. The roof itself had some kind of, I don't know if it was for an antenna or a flagpole or what, but we wanted to cover that up. Plus, once you add something like a or air handler to the roof, it gives it a much more, I'll put little air quotes around that, realistic appearance. And looks like somebody actually used this building for something besides a ruin. I primed this starting with black, and I primed from the bottom this way, sprayed it, and then turned it over once that was dry and sprayed it down, almost like a zenithal highlighting with gray. There were a few spots that I missed. I went back and just took a brush and filled those in. That's fine. We're going to sponge paint over this anyway. I'm going to set this up to add a band of color along the bottom. We're just going to use some painter's tape, and we'll sponge that on, and then we'll get ready to sponge on the rest. And then we'll pick out some little details. Of course, we got to make our sign still. We'll get to that. The rest of this came out pretty good, so let's get set up to put our band of color on. I took painter's tape and just blocked off everywhere I didn't want that color to be on the bottom, all my door frames and all that. So we're just going to use a sponge, oops, maybe this way, and a little bit of this blue craft paint. And we're just going to sponge that on. And just do that to taste. I just want that kind of faded, peeling paint look. And we'll just do that all the way around. Alright, the remainder of the building, or most of the wall pieces anyway, not the windows, but we're going to give like an aged white, so I'm going to do a mix of tan and white, and we'll sponge that on with our sponge again. That's about a 3-to-1 white to tan mix. So just kind of do it to taste. You know, it can be as dirty or as clean as you like. The key to this technique is to take your time and dab with the sponge. Don't smear it. And just go all the way around. But you see, as you do it, you kind of build up layers. And again, it's to taste. So this could be as splotchy as you wanted or as smooth as you wanted. You could just brush paint it. That would be fine. But we're going to finish this, and then we'll get to some more detailing. Alright, after sponging on our kind of dirty white color, I went back and added color to that overhang. I took some very dark gray, did all of the pieces for the concrete, including the entrance stairs. Also glued on a little bit of sand there. We'll paint that, and we'll put some kind of dead grass in there. And got ready to do the windows. Any place that I felt was too big of a miss with the sponge, I just went in with the brush and just stippled where I needed color to be, whether it be blue or white or gray, whatever. So we're going to let this dry, and then we'll get to work on the concrete. I'm going to take a sponge with a lighter gray and go over this and give it kind of a concrete texture. Alright, so I painted that dirt that's in there. We're going to let that dry, and then we'll dry brush it a little bit. The dark gray, I went over it with a makeup sponge with some lighter gray and a little tiny bit of tan, and that did pretty good. So we're going to let that dry, and we're going to work on the windows for our building. We're going to go in with some gunmetal and touch up all those windows and these doors as well. I went back and hit all of the windows and the door frames, the doors themselves rather, with that gunmetal color, and that helped pick those out pretty well. We're going to dirty that up with some brown wash and whatnot as we age this. I'm going to do the roof. The roof is probably going to be, the rim, outer rim will be white, and then this will be a dry brush to look like gravel. And of course that'll be kind of a rusty metal, and that'll be rusty metal. So we'll get that knocked out, and then we'll start aging the building while we wait for this. This is almost dry enough to dry brush, and then we'll add some grass. The stairs, I ended up putting a little bit of wash on there, a little bit more dry brushing, and then I added some static grass that was kind of a dead color, and then these really cool little weeds I got the other day when I went to a convention. These are from Germany, and they have very concise instructions with no words, but you know, if you read that, you can take over Poland, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, I really like the way they look. They're supposed to be sort of dead autumn sort of weeds, and they add just enough color to really make that pop. The signage, I didn't do such a fantastic job on, but I went in and just did it in a text program, figured out what size I needed, printed that out, put it on a piece of chipboard with some Mod Podge, and Mod Podge the whole thing, front, back, both sides, all that good stuff. That dried really quick, and I just super glued it on there, and I took a sponge and just sponged on the dark gray to give that the chipped, worn appearance. You could dirty it up even more if you wanted. Not the best thing, but it works pretty well, I think. The roof section, got that dry brush treatment for the gravel. I painted all of the metal bits up here a very, very dark brown, yeah, burnt umber, and then went back and dry brushed them with silver, and just to give them a rusty metal look. And of course the window frames for the skylight got that same treatment with the wash and the gunmetal. You could easily add some plastic to that and make actual, like a window, or broken, dusty, and I may go back and add some of those on here. I didn't want to give it a completely fortified look, but I didn't want it to be completely decrepit either. I've got another one of these that's slightly broken I'm going to turn into a ruin, so that'll be a future video. But I picked out all of the signage with some dull red colors, and you know, gave it some wash here and there, and just basically kind of grimied it up a little bit. So that is our post-apocalyptic hospital build using one of the more classic Plasticville kits. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope it inspires you to make something awesome, and I hope you guys have a fantastic day.